Now, Paul Hyland, President of the Irish Grassland Association, almost this time 12 months ago, you surely wouldn't have anticipated such an incredible year on so many fronts. We'll talk about grass in a few moments, but obviously COVID interrupted but didn't stop the IGA programme.
No, Matt, I suppose, yeah, it interrupted us. It probably made us think a little bit differently on our strategy and how we were going to go and stay in touch with our members. Sure, Matt, it has changed. You know, so many things have been changed and affected, and we agreed that we would do our level best using technology, whatever means we could, to stay in touch with our members and try to stay relevant.
And it worked extraordinarily well, in my opinion, with the dairy online tour, the beef online tour, and latterly the sheep tour this week.
Yeah, well, the sheep tour, I might as well plug it now when I'm here. It's starting tomorrow evening for 3 nights, for 3 days on it's on all forms of social media. I never thought last September I'd be talking about social media as many times, or do as many Zoom calls, or have remote meetings and remote working. You know what I mean? Remote working for me was a remote control for working a drafter outside a milking parlour or something like that. That's about as far as I was from remote. But we did have to embrace it a bit. But luckily, there were people on the council who knew how to do it, had been working in the industry, knew exactly what we needed to do. So look, it was our first attempt. I think it went well enough. We would have been great people to have got it correct, to get it 100% correct on our first try. Hopefully we'll improve. Matt, I don't know how long this is going to last. None of us do. I would be suggesting or surmising that something similar will certainly have to happen for the first half of next year. We don't know.
Yeah, and I would suggest, Paul, that some of the new technology that had to be brought in a hurry, such as the drone technology for aerial viewing, could be incorporated long term into the dairy and beef and sheep tours.
Well, you're dead right there, because something we had to be doing. We were relying, you see, on a big group of people to turn up in a field on a day, or to turn up in a big room for a conference on a day. Well, one thing that the feedback we got was that the small little videos we were doing on the likes of Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, or even on our own website, www.irishgrassland.ie, any member or non-member can go in there and look at any of the footage we have. You can also apply to become a member there. But we found with the feedback we got that more of that is actually, people like that. People like to be able, people get a lot of information from their phone in their pocket on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. You know what I mean? It's our main source of news at the moment. So, I mean, if we want to remain relevant, we certainly will have to take it much more seriously.
And speaking of relevance, Paul, in some ways the IGA flies a little bit under the radar, but you can turn up with 500, 600, 700 people at the annual dairy conference in January. And you've got a long list of illustrious past presidents before yourself, the likes of Michael Drennan of Grange, Matt Dempsey, Dr. Henry Kennedy. It really is an extraordinary organisation devoted to grass.
Yeah, it is. And I suppose, when you think back of how long we're in existence, we're in existence, we're heading for 80 years, I mean, it's around the corner, another few years, we're 80 years old. And like those people, I suppose, grass was the thing back then. Then we the way farming goes in cycles, in all industry goes in cycles. But the one thing, those people, they were real pioneers. They were absolutely dedicated. It was clear. Look, it's clear forever that we can grow grass. We can grow grass very well here in Ireland. The Irish Grassland is not by any means saying that we should be doing grass and nothing else. All we're trying to say is that don't waste it. It's a resource. Let's manage it properly. Let's be environmentally friendly and sustainable with the way we manage it. Let's make the most of it. And what the grassland has always done is just to be a conduit, to be a pipeline, just to bring the latest technology, the latest information, whatever the latest research, wherever it comes from in the world. It could be daft, you know what I mean? But we'll examine it, we will put it out to our members, let them examine it, and then let people decide whether they want to go forward with it or not. We don't like the grassland, as you know, Matt, you're very familiar with it. So I suppose I have to remember I'm talking to other people as well. But the grassland, we don't do research. You know, that's not something we do. We wouldn't have the resources to do. But we have people on our council who do research. You know what I mean? We have people from industry that do their own. Get all that information together and try and get we're not telling people what to do. We're not telling people how to do it. We're just giving them, if they're interested in grass and pastoral farming, whether it's in dairy, beef or sheep, we try to get that information out. That's as simple. It's as simple as that. What we do.
And speaking of research and taking it on board that the Grassland Association doesn't do research as such, but it was the primary sponsor for a 3-year program investigating the role or potential role of automated milking systems, robots as we would know them.
That's right. That was the autograph.
Run by Moore Park.
Yeah, it was the autographs program. There was funding available. There were 6 countries undertook research into the use of robots in pastoral systems. Okay, obviously a place to try it was Ireland. Okay, we were approached to know would we go in partnership or in conjunction with a research outfit, and the research outfit in Ireland, of course, is Teagasc. To know would we draw down some funding to do that. We did. We set up a committee to run that. We drew down the funding. Teagasc, of course, did the research. The research is now obviously completed. It is finalised. It was only wound up in this year, as you know, Matt. The findings have been published. The beautiful thing about it was done in 6 other countries. It brought in a fair whack of cash into dairy research that wouldn't be brought in had the grassland not got involved in it. It was absolutely independent, the research. You know what I mean? There was no milk machine company or no feed company or nobody else involved in the research of it. So we could hold our hands up and say, these are the facts. This is what we found. We did conduct a few open days on it when the research was concluded. So that was one of the bigger things we did. We wouldn't do a lot of that, Matt, but it was one of those nice things to be involved in. Lovely to be involved in a project like that, where you can actually bring in a nice wad of money into research in Ireland that otherwise wouldn't have been here.
Yeah, any particular aspects of it or pertinent points emerging from the research, Paul?
I suppose it was examined warts and all, and it was discovered that in certain systems and with very good management, I suppose, Matt, the one thing that came out of it was the absolute that you need to be on your A game from a grass point of view to manage robots strictly if you want to be strictly at grass. That's probably the key thing that came out of that. But look, we knew that. But I mean, it was reinforced. It has, and anybody that embraced it on farm, they will also tell you that if you want to be strictly on grass with robots, your grassland management has to be top notch.
Any thoughts of your own, Paul, on automated systems? Could it signal a slight drift away from pastoral farming?
I don't know. It's down to the individual. Of course it could, like anything else. Of course it could. High milk price could do the same thing, Matt, just as handy. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we are. A lot of us like toys. We like the latest gadgets. But I wouldn't dismiss technological advances based on the fact that you'd be nervous of yourself going down a wrong route, let's say, in your own management. There's nothing like a farm or your own business to let you know fairly quickly that you've made a mistake. As long as you've not gone too far down the road, you can always come back, or you can veer back onto the right track. However, we need to, the likes of the robots, the likes of all this IT technology that's available. Look, labour is not as plentiful as it was. There was, the last 6 months with young lads around the yard, with loads of help. Probably be glad to see the back of them now at this stage. But back in the day, there was loads of help around the place, and there was plenty of, and if it took an hour longer to do it, you just send another fella off to give your man a hand. Those days are gone, as you know, Matt. So now it's about productivity. We are in a different world here. We're dealing on the world stage. We have to match the big guys, whether we like it or not. We're not big guys here in Ireland, but we have to go out and hurl on that pitch with them. So if we don't make the most of technology, and not all technology. Look, there's gimmicks and everything, but there is really good stuff there. I mean, I wouldn't buy any, like you mentioned robotics there. I wouldn't dismiss that at all. You know, there are farms and they're doing wonderful work with it, and there are farmers and it has kept them in the game. It may have encouraged the next generation to come into the game. You know, so you know, there's room for it all, but it's all about management. I don't believe, and the grassland don't believe, there's any one system beats the other system. All we'll ever say, Matt, is that grass is our resource. Make the most of it. If you were a grain farmer, and we you know, you're a member of the Irish Grain Farmers or Grain Growers Association, the very same thing would be said. Make the most of what you have.
Listen, back to my favourite subject, yours too, probably, apart maybe from hurling or rugby or sport in general, grass. It's like COVID, it's been a roller coaster year. Back in June, we were wondering where the next blade would come out of. Now we're wondering what to do with all the blades that are out there.
You know, yeah. It's just been an incredible year, hasn't it? You know what I mean? Like, it was a monsoon, and then it was like straight dry immediately. We thought we were yoked. We thought we were away from it. But I suppose, you know, 2018 is not too far from our memories, Matt. And I know the area of the country you're farming in as well. You'd be quite similar to this. We're in the same vein. And like, our terror was that this was going to last until September. Now, thankfully, it didn't. But talk about a recovery. I've never seen a recovery. I don't think you've ever seen a recovery like it. The recovery was phenomenal. And so, you know, it wasn't a drought as it turned out. It was a dry period. You know, a drought is when we're still yellow, I suppose, in August. But I suppose we have to be mindful that where other farmers in our area, you know, that you know, a wet and windy May fills the barn with corn and hay. It didn't happen this year, and you know, there are our arable colleagues didn't fare quite as well, and like, you know, it is going to be tough on them. And I suppose really it's up to us as livestock farmers. Like, we have to remember that they're an integral part of our system as well. You know what I mean? And I suppose the favourite question every dairy farmer asks is, you know, when lads are cutting the corn, was there much of a crop of straw off it? Which maybe, you know, a crop of barley might be the number one for the people that are growing that as well. And it's very important that we use as much of that as we can wherever we're fitting it into our system. And just remember that they are our colleagues, our neighbours, and we need them.
Listen, within a short period, Paul, you'll be handing over to Stan Lawler as the next president of the IGA. Looking into a crystal ball, you'd still hope that some of the big IGA gigs will happen next year, starting obviously with the AGM, but then the big dairy conference, the set piece in January, may not happen the way historically it happened.
No, and there's another thing too, Matt. It doesn't have to happen in January. You know, it's a movable feast. We traditionally had it in January, and the reason we had it in January, most lads are drying up. It's the kind of the last gig before we settle down to calving cows, the last night out. It's a very social occasion. You know what I mean? We now have a pre-conference night that you're aware of. You know, and it's a great get together. Great, you know, there's probably as much information passed the night before as there is during the conference. But I suppose you won't quote me on that, Matt, will you? But the you know, there will have to be changes. You know that, Matt. I can't see, we're not going to have 700 people in a room anywhere in this country next January. You know, so look, our set pieces are, Matt, just to make people aware, we would start our year with our dairy conference. You know, that would be usually, it has been held the last few years in Charlotte and Cork. International speakers. Sometimes we don't even need to go international. We have enough speakers, enough information here in Ireland. We will cover various topics from financial to practical, and send people home with a good message of what they needed to do for the rest of the year, or what they needed to be mindful of. We would move on then. I suppose our next big event after that would be, we would have our beef summer tour, we would have our sheep summer tour, we would have our dairy summer tour, which they're all generally held midsummer. We had a student conference then, which is quite a big gathering. It was actually held in Kilkenny. You was on your own farm the last time we held it, 2019. Am I correct? Yeah, 2019. Yeah. Held on your own farm there. Huge success. You're well aware of it yourself. A lot of students, you know, they attend the student conference. They disappear off into their careers, develop their careers. But the beautiful thing about it is, a lot of them seem to come back to us again. You know, and it's great, and it's great to immerse them. And you know, we're very lucky that we have some really good sponsors behind it. We have people who believe in what we're doing. and they seem to stick with us year on year. And we have our little ups and downs no more than anyone else. But I mean, once we're putting out the information and not being influenced by anybody else, they're quite happy to stick with us. And if you take our council, Matt, which you're a member of yourself, we have people from research, Teagasc researchers, we have people from fertilizer companies, we have people from accountancy firms, we have bankers, we have farmers, we have all the people. But the one thing that I will say, and it's a credit to everyone who's been on the council since I've been on council, and I'm on council, 4 years now at this stage, 1 year as president, I will say, and it's a credit to them all, every one of them leaves their trade hat at the door when they walk in, and they come in and they work and they discuss things and they plan things in the best interest for the members of the Irish Grassland. And I think it's a credit to them all. I really was concerned that maybe people would, try and influence things one way or the other, but that doesn't happen. So that's a credit to all the people involved.
Just a reference back to a man we mentioned earlier, Dr. Henry Kennedy, a past president of the IGA and factotum in general of ICOS for many, many years. He spoke at a conference, a summer school at Maynooth, I think, or Clongowes Wood, way back in 1938, talking about the underutilisation and untapped potential of our grassland. Are we there yet?
It was incredible. I read it in the journal, and it was an incredible piece to read. Do you know what I mean? That it was so far-sighted. Like, and even how many years ago was that, Matt? That's many, many years ago that paper was given. Yeah. And it was, are we there? I don't know, Matt. I don't know where we are in relation to his paper, but I mean, it was just, it was an incredible bit of foresight he had. It was a great question he asked. You know what I mean? About, are we using it properly? Are we, you know what I mean? And it was the same questions we're asking today. The same, but things have moved on an awful lot since too. Like, I mean, we are in the realms of, we have more tools at our disposal now than we're at the disposal back in those times. Hopefully we're using them responsibly, but we're learning all the time. Probably the biggest change to grassland, the pastoral farming in the last few years is the pasture measuring. Being able to go out and measure exactly what you have on the farm today. And really all you need to know is what you had last week, what you have today, and the bit in the middle is what grew or didn't grow. Do you know what I mean? You know how many cows you have. They're eating the same amount every day, or close enough. So that I think that has I know it certainly has revolutionized things here on the farm with us, and I'm sure you'll find the same yourself and anybody who embraces it. And I'm not saying that everyone has to be putting it all into a computer package every day. Lots of farmers have been measuring grass for years, and lots of them have their own ways of measuring grass. Some people are just so intuitive with their eye; they really know what's going on. And I suppose the other thing is we have ways of dealing with surplus now that we probably didn't have before. There's balers around now, and there's contracts. Seems to be a lot of contractors that you can make a call, get a job done, and just keep everything in rotation. So that's where we are today, I suppose, Matt.
Paul Hyland, outgoing president of the Irish Grassland Association. Congratulations on a very successful, if extraordinarily hectic, presidency.
Before we go, Matt, could I just make one reference to somebody? We have as you know, we have a council of 24, but we have one kind of constant there all the time. That's Maura Callery, who was she's called our office manager. She's a lot more than our office manager. So I just that's the constant that's fierce important too, because we'll all come and we'll all go. And she's still there in the middle of it all, knows what needs to happen next, knows where we need to go, has all the context for it. So, I mean, it would be remiss of me here not to take this opportunity to thank her for the support to me, past presidents, and hopefully many future presidents as well. I'd also like to thank all the council for being so cooperative. It's been an unbelievably difficult year. The chairs of each committee, when they were given a task to do, there was absolutely no hesitation. They didn't know where to start, but they got it done. It was brilliant. Thanks very much, Matt.
Well done.
Thank you, Matt.